In today's video, you have part 5 of my SCASL project, in which I talk about the last 5 books for the young adult list. Now, unfortunately, I did not come across any standouts in this last 5. Those I will reserve. Well, I take that back. There was one that was really, really good. But other than that, the rest were disappointing in this last section. I'm going to start off by talking about Prepped by Bethany Mangle. I thought that I would really like this book as I started reading it. I love the idea that it wasn't an apocalyptic novel, even though the main character has grown up in this society of doomsday preppers, but it doesn't turn into an apocalyptic novel. She has to deal with real life events that transpire after a tragic, somewhat everyday accident that heightens the fear amongst the doomsday preppers. And she's always wanted to get out of this scenario. And I thought it was really cool how Mangle kept it from going into apocalyptic stuff. I've realized that's not my thing. I don't tend to enjoy those. But then you come to the ending, or should I say the lack of an ending. Things just sort of, we're done. It just ends. There's no resolution. The mother is a completely unsympathetic character. She does some things that seem really like, wait, you did what? It was entirely unrealistic. And it really, because the end of the book, the non-ending, was so unsatisfactory, it tainted my entire view of the book. So I think I ended up rating this about 2.5 stars. And if it hadn't been for another book in this group, it would be in last place. So as far as rep goes, I don't remember any rep being mentioned in this. Okay, there was somewhat, because the love interest, the arranged boyfriend relationship for the main character, is Chinese. So that's the only rep in this book. As far as quality and teaching potential, obviously, since I had such a problem with the ending, no, I would not use this as a tool to teach from. I don't think it was good. As far as keeping it on my classroom shelves, if I came across it, like in the really big book sale that I'm going to in a few weeks, if it happened to be there, I might stuff it into my bag that I paid $10 for. I'm not going to go out of my way to look for it though. And again, as I've mentioned in the previous 2 videos, I will talk about ranking at the end of the video. Next, we have Cemetery Boys. This is, out of the 5, this is the one standout. I was unsure, I was a little hesitant going into this because I have read an Aidan Thomas work previously. I believe last year, no, for the Goodreads Choice Awards, his second novel was on there, Lost in the Neverwoods, and that is a take on a Peter Pan retelling. There just seems something slightly inauthentic to that narrative, especially in comparison to Cemetery Boys. There was such a realness in these characters that it just, you could not help but become engaged in their stories. But the main character is a trans Latinx boy who really wants to prove to his family that he is a brujo. And this part of their culture, it's in Los Angeles, this part of their culture, it derived from the idea that there is a group, a magic associated with taking care of the dead. Like, he lives in a cemetery, well, there's a house in the cemetery area, but they are in charge, so the brujos are in charge of helping spirits pass on, and the brujas are in charge of healing. And his family is struggling with accepting him, and then he only sort of gets acceptance from his cousin, who's awesome, I love her, and his uncle, who doesn't have enough magic. So like the magic's dying out as it becomes diluted. And his uncle was the older son, but he was passed over for the main character's father, who had the magic, but he was passed over because he didn't have the magic. And at the beginning of the story, it opens with him performing the ceremony that is sort of like an initiation, a coming of age ceremony. And when he does, he also manages to summon a spirit but not the spirit that he's looking for, because his cousin has gone missing. And this spirit, Julian, I don't think there's been a character that I have loved as much as I love Julian in so long. Every time, like, his infectious joy at, like, even though it's a terrible situation because, like, he's a ghost, I just could not help smiling. I love Julian so much. And I just thought that this book did such an excellent job dealing with the cultural aspects, dealing with the representation aspects. It had the level of authenticity that was missing in Lost in the Neverwoods. So I believe I rated this 4 stars, maybe a 4.5. It's somewhere in there. I really enjoyed it. As far as representation goes, obviously you have LGBTQ+, you also have Latinx. There's a lot of different, like when you think LGBT+, all sorts of representation in there. As far as quality and teaching potential, I think structurally, the quality of the writing is brilliant. Like there are a lot of different aspects that this could be used to teach different aspects of writing and literature. However, I come back to something that I've mentioned in several other reviews for this project, that I don't think that in the political climate in which I live, if I were teaching language arts, that I would be able to use a book like this as a whole class novel, certainly not as a whole class novel, and maybe not as a book club selection. It really guts me to have to say that. As far as keeping it on the classroom shelves, 1000%. I would definitely have this on the classroom shelves. There might be some pushback if a parent decided to read the book. I mean, they do all these protests to books and they haven't actually read them. Anyway, that's a side tangent. I would definitely keep it on the classroom shelves. Next, we have Watch Over Me by Nina LaCour. I have a mixed response to this book because there was a lot about this book that I really loved, that really drew me in and kept me engaged. It's a short book, probably one of the shortest books on the young adult list. The main character went into foster care when she was 14 after the death of her parents. And she has now aged out of the system, but she doesn't want to go to college. She's still grieving, I should say, after the death of her mother. She never really knew her father. She's still grieving. There's traumatic events that happened in her past, and that's a really big key for plot points later on in the book. But she doesn't want to go to college, but there's this home out in Northern California or Oregon, I believe it's Northern California, where the couple who run this farm is fairly isolated, but they have made it their life's work to take in foster kids. But as part of that, because they take in so many and because they're so isolated, they hire on other people, and they try to specialize in hiring on people like the main character to serve as the teachers for these kids. There's paranormal stuff going on here, stuff that you're not really sure whether or not is actually happening, and it's dealing a lot with grief. I wanted to like this book, but there are just a few things that kind of made me uncomfortable about it. And I can't really put into words what that was. I thought that Nina LaCour did a really good job with creating this ethereal atmosphere, but it just wasn't a favorite for reasons I can't really express. I did end up rating it either a really high 3.5 stars or a low 4 stars. And I say that because I didn't write that down on my notes. As far as representation goes, there are a lot of different ethnicities, both among the couple and the kids at the farm. There is LGBT rep, and there is mental health rep. As far as quality and teaching potential, because I can't really put into words what felt off to me about this book, I would not feel comfortable teaching from it. If I'm going to teach from a book, if I'm going to use a book as a tool in my teaching, I really want to understand with it and connect with it. I think it could be used. I don't know that I personally would use it. As far as keeping it on the classroom shelves, I would have it on there. I would want to probably read it again to see if I could figure out what really unsettled me about it, but I would have it on my classroom shelves. I wouldn't necessarily go out of my way to put it on my classroom shelves, but I would have it. Second to last book, book number 19, we have Lycanthropy and Other Chronic Illnesses. I love the concept in this book. There are so many things that made me laugh out loud. Bridget, the friend, is an absolutely hilarious character. She's the one with lycanthropy. And the Priya, the main character, she had this whole plan set out for her life. She goes off to college, but at some point, maybe a summer when she came home, she got bitten by a tick. She got Lyme disease. And she fought through an entire semester of all these symptoms that she didn't understand. And it progressed beyond the point where it's easily treatable. And Lyme disease is not really understood, but it's created like this chronic fatigue. It's created all kinds of issues for her, and she had to take a medical leave of absence from college. And I will say, all of these characters, except for one of the friends, are like above college age. So I would actually categorize this as new adult rather than young adult, but that didn't put me off the book. And so Priya, who is sort of confined to her house and limited to Tumblr and Discord, she makes friends with Bridget on her Tumblr account, and then is introduced to some other people, and they form a Discord group because all of these people in the group, they have some form of chronic illness. And the representation, I'll mention this again at that point, but the representation of chronic illness and how people actually struggle and how other people look at it, brilliant. Absolutely well done. I loved the take on lycanthropy as an actual illness and what happens to Bridget, but in that sense, things sort of fell flat. Like, one of the driving things of the plot is Priya helping Bridget try to figure this out, figure out what's going on with her and how to treat it. But some of the things towards the end just sort of feel weird and unsatisfactorily resolved. But there was just a lot that was really good about the book that I enjoyed. I enjoyed the writing style. It was in mixed media, like there were like Discord chats and things like that. So I did think it was a really good book. It just didn't get up to the level where I think it was a standout book. So I did rate it 4 stars. As far as representation goes, obviously we have chronic illness, and we have lots of different kinds of chronic illness in there. We have South Asian with Priya. We have LGBT plus with some of the other characters in the Discord group. There were, I think, at least one other type of representation that I'm not remembering. The author did a really good job on that. As far as quality and teaching potential, because I think some of the aspects with the fantastical part of it, the lycanthropy part of it, weren't executed as well as they could be, I wouldn't use it to teach from. I definitely wouldn't use it as a whole class novel. And I would not use it as a book club book because I just think there are books that do it better. As far as keeping it on the classroom shelves, most definitely. That representation needs to be out there, and I know that there are kids that would really both enjoy the book and get immense satisfaction out of seeing themselves represented in a book. And finally, we have the last book that I read as part of this project. It's kind of fitting that the last book that I read as part of this project, it's also the worst. I started off with a really terrible book, actually book number 19, and I finished with book 20. Thankfully, there were some gems in between. That book is All Your Twisted Secrets. I have read One of Us is Lying before. It was another one of the SCASL young adult books. I thought it was fine. That's really not my sort of thing. In All Your Twisted Secrets, the main character, Amber? I can't actually remember her name. I think it's Amber. And 5 other people are all invited to this scholarship dinner. But then things get out of hand. They get trapped in the room. They have an hour to either kill somebody or a bomb will go off. And so it's told in a dual timeline with the present, them trying to figure out the situation, and the past, the things that are leading up to it. I figured it out way early on. And I don't like these sorts of stories because, like, the amount of trauma that you are inflicting on these people is ridiculous. I hate it. There were no twisted secrets. There was, I mean, every character was a stock character you pull out of a high school drama thing. It's like the Breakfast Club started something new, and then everybody else that wants those vibes, take those stock characters, give them different names, and then think that they've done something new. They haven't. This book was not it. It was terrible. And then the ending, like, wait, what did you just do? What is she going to do? No, I did not like it. It gets 2.5 stars. Representation. I honestly don't remember any representation. I mean, there is a South Asian character also named Priya. I mean, South Asian characters have other names than Priya. By the way, people, I think there's been 3 books that I've read with a South Asian character named Priya. There's more names than just Priya. As far as quality and teaching potential, no way. I would not use it for whole class, book club, nothing. As far as keeping it on the classroom shelves, I could see this being something that students would enjoy. One of Us is Lying is really popular. I think that kids might get a kick out of this, might enjoy it. So I wouldn't go out of my way to put it on my classroom shelves, but I would put it on there if the book sort of like stumbled into my path. All right, now we get my final rankings. I just decided this morning. I am going to have a part 7 in which I reflect upon this project, what went well, what I might change, and also which books I think are actually going to win. Without further ado, here are my overall rankings. Not much has changed, so I'll go through this fairly quickly. At the top, we still have Firekeeper's Daughter and Clap When You Land. They're brilliant. I just have such fond feelings for them. I figured it wasn't going to change. Then tied for number 3, we have what I think was the best out of all the ones that I read specifically for this project, and that is Unscripted, and This Is My America. Coming in at number 5, you have Legendborn, and then at number 6, you have Cemetery Boys. I told you I had one standout in this last section, and it was Cemetery Boys. Very well done. Then at number 7, we have The Gilded Ones, and at number 8, we have Grown. At number 9, we have Watch Over Me, and at 10, we have The Bridge. At number 11, we have Lycanthropy and Other Chronic Illnesses, and at 12, we have The Inheritance Games. At number 13, we have The Ravens. At number 14, we have More Than Maybe. At number 15, we have Bedazzled. At number 16, we have Charming as a Verb. And now we're getting into the not so great ones. At number 17, we have Prepped. At number 18, we have Displacement. At number 19, we have This Is Not the Just Show. And at number 20, we have All Your Twisted Secrets. Thanks so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next one.